Good evening. Happy birthday, Sister Aruma. My name is Chizo Malize, and I am the Managing Director of FITC, Financial Institution Training Center, a Central Bank of Nigeria entity in Nigeria. And my question is for His Royal Highness, the Emir in the room. Apart from the huge number of very innovative reforms that you shared, that a number of people can attest for in the financial service sector when you were the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, both with regards to the economy, regulations, and all of those remarkable reforms. One other thing that you had set going that we do find remarkable up until today is the fact that you created an opportunity for female leaders. And it was at that time that you created a policy where there must be 30% of women and females in senior leadership. What that has done today is the catalyst it became, because today we've got about 11 female managing directors, chief executive officers of banks in Nigeria. And that's really very commendable. Yes. So as we do say thank you for all of that vision, the question now is, with the benefit of hindsight and the foresight that you are known for, what do you think, where should we be going for regulators, regulated, and the Nigeria economy? Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, next panel is right at the back. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. So, my name is Odhiambo David. I'm doing an MBA here, and I'm the founder of African Pharmaceutical Network. It's an organization based in Nairobi, Kenya, focusing on strengthening pharmaceutical systems in Africa to ensure there's reliable access to quality, safe, and effective medicines in the continent. So from the conversation, the Minister Aganga mentioned the work that he did through as a Ministry for Industry, Trade, and Investment. And the key essential piece that you mentioned is the fact that we need, it's not about the ministry, but the leader who is there. But the question we have is, if we are depending on the leader, we don't have infinite lifetime. So how do we institutionalize the vision, the strategy that you have to ensure sustainability? Sanusi, His Excellency, mentioned the work that he did when Nigeria had an inflation of 18%. Yeah. Last year, we were talking about 33.3%, and currently it's expected to be 30%. How do we ensure we institutionalize these interventions and the vision that these leaders have to ensure that whatever successes we get are not only for the moment, but rather sustainable into the long term for what we want?
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Just to be clear, who are you directing your question to? Just to be clear.
Minister Aganga.
Thank you. I thought so. Sir. No hot seats here. Thank you. And the final question is to the panel there. Thank you. Tammy, you are getting some mutiny going on over here. Please, go ahead with your question, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Medina Sanusi. My question is actually directed to Mr. Segun Aganga, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, and Honorable HRH, Mohammed Sanusi. My question, unlike every other person in this room, I do not work in business, I work in fashion. And I studied fashion as a degree, which I have a bachelor's degree in fashion styling. Thank you very much. My question is that in a time of economic uncertainty, what innovative financial strategies can public leadership adopt to sustainably balance community investments, operational costs, and long-term fiscal responsibilities? Because I think this is just something that we all ignore, especially in Africa, and I just want to dive into that. I'm also looking into sustainability as a whole, and of course, coming from fashion, I just have to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your question. Please forgive us. Just in the interest of time, I might have to direct it to one participant, and I think it will be Mrs. Adeosun, if you don't mind. And I'm sure the others will be very happy for you to interact with them outside. Okay? That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for being gracious. Let's appreciate her, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so that's it. We're good? Fabulous. We'll see if there's another round. Your Excellency, sir. And he has mic number 4, gentlemen. Thank you.
The question, I think, was around what do I think will not change. I think it's leadership. I think everything falls or stands around leadership. And frankly, if we get leadership right, whether it's political leadership, leadership in business, everything stands or falls around leadership. As a matter of fact, I'm not always entirely certain whether a tree cannot make a forest. I'm not entirely certain whether it cannot. Because really, I mean, you really need to have one person who is going to make things happen. Of course, they must have a good team around them. But leadership for me is that factor that just doesn't change.
Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. We'll take the second question. Your Royal Highness. Thank you, sir. Mic number 3, please.
So thank you very much, and I'm glad you brought up the whole question of women. I saw Shola David Bora in this. Where's she, Shola? Okay. So Shola and Bola Adeshola were the co-chairs of the subcommittee that worked on the 2012 being the year for women in banking in Nigeria. And Shola remembers that when they first made their presentation, they had recommended that 50% of the boards should be female. They had a beautiful presentation with the bankers. Then on the very last slide, they had a picture of what the future board would look like. And it was all female. And by making that one mistake, they set us back, and we had to negotiate for 30%. Because it was clear that they were not just looking for opportunities, they wanted to kick the men out of banking. It was an interesting meeting. But yes, you know, when we started it, and I think when we talk about the future begins today. It's about a vision. What we did that year was to say we wanted at least 30% of board seats to be female. We wanted at least 40% of senior management to be female. And for all new recruitments, at least 50% to be female. And personally, I'm proud to see so many years later having 10, 11 female bank CEOs coming out of that process. But one thing I think we need to remember as regulators and leaders is that sometimes people are the bottleneck. If you want something done, you've got to find a way to do it. And I'll give you one small example. When we started in the central bank, I said I wanted, the first year, I wanted 30% of central bank directors to be female. And when the promotion list came out after the whole process, I didn't have any women. And I asked, and I was told that the women were not ready. And the process was complete. The next year, I called the Director of Human Resources and said I wanted the CVs of all female deputy directors. The first thing that struck me, I saw one CV of a lady who had 2 bachelor's degrees, 3 master's degrees, was always top 3 in all risk-based supervision. She was a chartered accountant. You know, I mean, one of the most qualified human beings that I saw. And she was hiding in some small other financial institutions department in some corner in Lagos. As a governor, I did not even know we had somebody like that in the bank. You know, and there are so many of them. And I insisted that they must go through the process. And by the time we came out, we then had about 8 or 9. I mean, if you think of it, in 50 years of the central bank's history before then, only 4 women had made director. In 1 year, we promoted 8. But not just that, I decided that there were certain areas in central banking that were monopolized not just by men, but by alpha males. And I gave them to the women. So I appointed a female director of banking supervision, a female director of internal audit, a female director of branch operations, a female director of risk management, because, you know, we tend to keep women to human resources and medical, you know, their mothers, you know, agony aunts, you know, that's what they can cope with. And when I appointed a female director of banking supervision, the bank MDs would call me when they had issues with her to say, the director, I said, well, I'm sorry, you've got to deal with her. You know, she's director of banking supervision. And when the bank MDs realized that the governor would not intervene, they then learned to respect a female director of banking supervision, to take orders from her, you know, to comply with her instructions because the governor would not overrule her. You know, so I think, for me, the lesson, you see, in Nigeria, we've got these extremely well set up institutions. I always complain when they say, oh, we don't have institutions. If you look at the central bank, if you look at SEC, if you look at NDIC, if you look at every single institution, we've got the laws, we've got the guidelines, we've got the regulations. It is the human beings that you put in there that destroy the institutions. But the institutions are there. So there is really nothing. I mean, our Central Bank Act is one of the best in the world. And it can be improved upon, but frankly, we've got everything we need to deliver on central banking. So the future of regulation for me is, how do we continue to make sure people like Aruma are in charge of SEC? How do you continue to make sure that we pick the right person to run these institutions so that they can deliver what they're supposed to deliver?
Fabulous. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. Same microphone to Mr. Segun Aganga. Thank you for...
Thank you very much. If I heard your question correctly, and the Emir has also confirmed it, it's about sustainability. How do we sustain the initiatives and all the brilliant ideas you put into place? There's not one solution to it. In an environment like that, you have to look at a combination of solutions. The first one, and I remember, I think before 2008, 2009, when we were running the Nigerian Leadership Initiative, and President Obasanjo invited us to run the program for him and his cabinet with the Aspen Institute from Colorado. And they were doing fantastic things then. And the idea is, how do you sustain these things? We decided at that meeting, forum, that the best, I mean, I was part of that group in those days. We decided at the forum that one of the best things they could do is back all the policies and initiatives by law and make sure that you take it to the National Assembly. So that's one solution, law. Back it with, I succeeded in doing that with the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It was a difficult one, difficult thing to get through. I had a lot of help and support. I had all the people around supporting them, but we had to make sure that we got into law, that it was passed. And I was privileged. I think the law was passed the last day of the administration, May 29, at 4 p.m. It was the last thing the president did before the end of that administration. If we hadn't passed that into law, we would not have sovereign wealth for today. So that's one solution to it. The second solution to it is, when you are formulating policies and initiatives and all that, I had the privilege of working with some very, very smart people who came with me from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Freshfields, and all that. But it's important that you work closely with the staff in the ministry and the agencies. It's important that whatever clever things you think you've done, make sure they are part of it and that they own it. And so when I said, look, we needed an industrial revolution plan, they said, Minister, we can't do it. Go and get a consultant to do it. Well, I got the team together, we did it. But the team had to sit with the Department of Industry to run through the program, the plan. And I had the director and the staff, there was a day for them to present it to me to show that they understood what I was saying. And all the heads of agencies, I had 16 reporting to me. It was part of their program, and each one of them bought into it and had it on their website, and they understood, and they became advocates for the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan. So people work with them, not in isolation. They're very, very good people within the ministry, not all of them, very, very good people, so you need to work with them. The third thing which you need to do, which is I have there, is about competence, and I think the Emir talked about it, and I'll link that with the institutions. The fact is that we do have, when you go into government, it's amazing what we have there. You have all the laws are there, all the institutions, everything you need is there. It's just the people to do the work. And why don't we have them? He said people, I will go further to say, well, you know about the institutions are there, but they are weak. Why are they weak? They are weak because we don't have the competent people there. And why don't we have the competent people there? Because we still believe that the dividends of democracy is bringing people, political allies, friends, into these positions. And politicians here will understand what I'm saying. I'm against it completely. If we want Nigeria to be, Nigeria is a blessed nation. It's a great nation. It's a fantastic country. I went in there and I could see what we have as a nation. If we have the right people in place, we will be one of the best nations in the world. I know that. So it's a case of getting the right people there. And someone talked about leadership earlier on, and talked about the vice president talked, for former vice president Professor Ochiba talked about getting more of those leaders there. I think someone talked about getting the right leadership. But the issue is that for you to have that sort of leadership, we need to change the political structure and governance system in the country. Because what we have now will not attract those leaders. We have abundant leaders. Many of you here are leaders. You're Nigerians. We're talking about Shola. Shola, good to see you again. We haven't seen you for a very long time. She's a female leader. You're talking about Aruma. We have fantastic leaders in the world. We are one of the best, the DNA, Nigeria. Absolutely proud, smart people all over the world. We excel everywhere in the world. So that you cannot, if you look at the room, there's no shortage of leadership. It's a lie if you say this. It's a political leadership, and that is because the political system does not attract the best people. Therefore, we don't have so we need to change that system, and we need something local, not necessarily presidential, democratic. We need to play to our strengths and get the right system in place. If we do, Nigeria will fly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Segun Aganga, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun.
Thank you. I believe the question was based on the fashion industry and building sort of sustainability and operational resilience. Did I get the question right? Well, if I didn't, I'm just going to talk about what I like. I mean, I'm excited that you're from the fashion industry because two things. One is, if you look at the trajectory of growth, so you've had Afrobeats, you've had Nollywood, and the African film industry, fashion surely has to be next, right? So when we talk about growth, and this is one of my theories, and I'm not a scholar, so there's no empirical evidence for this, just what I think, that real growth in Africa will only come at SME level. Right? The era of industrial, they open one big factory and employ 5, that's over, right? We're in the digital, it's niche, it's brand-driven, it's fashion, it's mom and pop, and we've got to harness that. We've got to harness it, we've got to support it, we've got to unleash it. And I think that fashion is absolutely up that street. I'd like to see the industry do. I'm not a believer in government must do, because government doesn't get it, right? You get it. So you have to get a group of people together and begin to engage with government. It was something that His Excellency, the Vice President, pioneered. We used to have these town hall meetings where we'd sit with the industries and we'd understand their problems at a granular level, and then we were able to begin to solve them. So those engagements need to be driven from the industry. Because really, you're the one that has the problem, so you kind of have to begin to shout and be an oily wheel, be a squeaky wheel and get oiled. So that's my first point. My second point is around new industries. So we talk about Africa, and people keep on talking about this wonderful revolution that's going to happen. And people have been talking about this since I was a child. So when people say, I just zone out, right? Because, we've been saying this since I was 7. I'm now a lot more than 7. So I think we need to think a little bit differently. We need to be niche and we need to be responsive. So let's think about the market for cannabis, right? Cannabis is $43 billion a year. We have comparative advantage. We have the sun. We don't need greenhouses to grow cannabis, right? But you have these conversations and people then say, then everybody will be smoking it. Well, it's like, hello? $43 billion. I mean, those who want to smoke it can go ahead and smoke it, but let's make the $43 billion. The pastor is very happy with $43 billion. So I think we've got to begin to start to have those conversations so that we can innovate quickly and work with our comparative advantage. And for a radical thought, you know, why don't we just make it exclusively for women? We're not interested in smoking the thing. We will just, we will happily sell it and collect the money. So I think there's some conversations to be had that are very industry specific, industries like yours, education, the digital economy has all been spoken about. My son struggled with math. His math teacher was in Lekki on Zoom, and he was charging Naira until he figured it out. And then he came one day and said, he's going to charge us in dollars. But, I mean, he got my son through the exam. These are opportunities that exist, but they're micro opportunities. And I think government has to then, and that goes back to what Mr. Aganga said about the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Investment. I posit that that is possibly the most important ministry in any African country. It's more important than the finance ministry because we don't control the price of oil. We don't control global interest rates, but we do control the micro industries and micro opportunities in our countries. So thank you. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, but tried.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adeosun. Fabulous. Thank you so much for all those responses, and thank you for those who asked the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking from the flight deck. Everybody still on this flight? Yes? Fabulous.
In the heart of the city where stories unfold, NjenjeMedia TV shining bright and bold, bringing news from the corners of the globe, connects us together, no matter